The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where you are. Thank you for joining us for Lessons Learned in a Changing Accounts Payable World. By the way, most of this is based on feedback that I, Mary Schaeffer from AP Now, and Jamie Radford from the AP Association have gotten from you through these sessions. So we both want to say a big thank you to you. As you know, we'll go through a few housekeeping details. Everyone is in listen-only mode. You can download a copy of the slide deck from the resource section of your console on the right, or you can email publisher@ap-now.com and we'll send it to you after the event. Our program will consist of the formal presentation with time for questions from you and comments from you throughout. As you know, if you have a comment or a question, simply type it in the box marked question, hit carriage return, and we try and share them throughout the talk. And of course, we'll be occasionally asking you a question, and when you do, you'll type the answer in the box marked question, and I'll report on them in total. So Jamie, I thought it would be interesting to start off with some statistics. You probably are not necessarily in agreement that numbers are the best way to start. But I wanted to share two slides. The first one is a survey that we did with this group at the very beginning of this, and I think the date was April 2nd. And at that time we said, do you think that remote working would be mandated at your company at least part of the time? And you can see basically nobody thought that that was going to happen. Do you remember that, Jamie?
I did, yeah, and it's interesting because I remember getting that statistic very early on, Mary, and yeah, I probably would have been in full agreement at that time. But how things change in 8-9 weeks.
Right, right. And so the next slide, I have the slide that we asked you guys last week, and we asked about returning to work. And you can see from here, I summarized everything. And the return to work is going to be slow. Now, when Jamie and I were chatting before we got on live, and you said people were starting to return in the UK, Jamie?
Yes, so it's really picked up this week. So the UK government have announced that from sort of July the 1st onwards, that people with non-essential jobs can start to return to the retails again, and a lot of the back office teams, AP teams, are going back. But then there's also a split of people who are staying at home and probably won't be returning this year. So there is a mix actually at the moment. But yeah, teams are starting to come back in the UK.
Yeah, so it's kind of, and I think that's a compliment, if you will, or a hats off to the good job that everybody did, because they showed their companies that, you know what, they could do it. So these are some of the comments that you made. June 10th, September 1st. I think I heard somebody saying the end of the year. I talked to my son about this. He's going back the 15th of this month, and a lot of it depends upon what state. So I'm going to ask the same question. And Jamie, I don't know about you, but I'm really curious to see what the audience says. So remember, type your answer in the box marked question and type 1A, 1B, 1C, and I'll calculate them afterwards and we'll share these statistics. So when this crisis is over, what do you think your organization's policy will be on working remotely? And of course, I'm talking in AP. Make it mandatory that you remote work at least one day a week, 1 day a month. Make it optional. You're not in quarantine, so no remote working, and you're not sure. So what's your guess?
I'd say C, actually, Mary. I think. As I say, I think when I've surveyed people in the UK 8-9 weeks ago, I think people would have been saying that not sure. Now I think most people, because you just commented, Mary, I think most people have done a sterling job of working remotely, getting their teams working remotely, and the necessity to return to an office environment is not once as pressing as it was. So I think I do believe that people will start to reflect on that and maybe not return as we would have seen them 8-9 weeks ago.
Yeah. So the comments here, a lot of D's and E's, some C's, I'm looking to see if we have any A's and B's. Yes, we have a few A's and B's. Somebody has typed in they're not allowed to work remotely. And there's another interesting comment. We talked about it yesterday. It might be 2 days a week. Work from home up to 2 days a week has been allowed for a couple of years, so we don't think this will change. And someone else has said, are you ready for this, Jamie? Permanent work from home. So,
Wow, okay. Yeah.
so even within a few weeks, there's been a change in attitude. So I think that's impressive. And Jamie, I think that also goes to show that we're getting farther and farther away from one size fits all accounts payable.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, that if nothing at all that the COVID thing has taught us is that actually that we're so flexible in what we do as an accounts payable industry. Whether you've got automation, no automation, you've got manual processes, paper, checks, whatever it will be, your AP will always find a way of making this work. And
Right.
that's the resilience and the flexibility that we've been showing.
Yeah. Okay, there's a question about answering these questions by phone, and I would suggest that you just email publisher@ap-now.com with your answer, and I'll coordinate that in when we go through the responses. Okay, so for anybody who's listening on their phone, okay, I know it's a little awkward, but flexibility is the key here, right? And I didn't pay him to say this, but flexibility is one of the lessons that we learned. So we're going to go through these lessons in a little bit more detail. We want to talk about flexibility. We're going to talk about getting comfortable with a wider range of technology. We're going to talk about getting rid of paper, expecting the unexpected and dealing with that. I'm going to talk about some workspace changes, the actual physical location and the accounts payable function. And I think there's been more appreciation. And then I want to talk about you can do it all because, clearly you can. So Jamie, maybe I'll let you start on the flexibility issue.
Well, hopefully this is flexibility in the workplace rather than doing yoga, because
Yeah.
I'd be useless at that. But yeah, absolutely. I think, number one, flexibility. I think what this whole COVID has taught us that even before COVID, I believed that the AP were a very flexible bunch anyway. But we've had to be so much more flexible, not only in terms of our internal and external practices, but our communication with our suppliers, how our internal businesses interact with us, how our staff are managed, how our processes are managed. If you take all that into account, you just had to change the flexibility approach of how you manage both teams, processes, and suppliers generally in terms of flexibility.
And one of the things that I really liked about this is I think a lot of accounts payable people, and I have to put myself in this category, we're not as flexible as perhaps we should. And, we had our comfort zone, or at least I had my comfort zone of, how I like to do things, etc. And this whole scenario forced me to basically throw away some things that I was holding real near and dear to me. And you know what? They didn't matter. So I'm thinking that some of our people found the same thing.
I think you're right, Mary, because I think, AP people tend to be set in their ways a little bit. They have a standard way of doing things, and obviously we've had to change and adapt. So adapting to different change and flexibility has been a big factor. But I think it's all for the positive.
Yes.
You see how fast people changed, and within a matter of days started to work from home, where effectively this function with all the controls and the risks and all those things that come with this, and adapt within a couple of days. If I was wearing a hat, it would be hats off, because it is an amazing achievement in that very short period of time to do this.
Yep. And one other thing, when we talk about flexibility, some of our management teams, to be blunt, were not as flexible either. And, I see some people saying, oh, they won't let us work from home. And I think what you're going to find when you go back to the office, or when we go back to whatever the new normal is that the management teams that you're dealing with might, not all of them, but some of them we'll have a new perspective, and maybe they'll be a little bit more flexible.
Yeah, I think you're right, Mary. And there's a survey in the UK. So one of our partners in the UK, Hayes Recruitment,
Yeah.
they ran a survey about how people are feeling, working from home and
Mm-hmm.
how their employers are working with them and their bosses. And 2/3 of the people they surveyed said that they were actually thinking about a career change because of how either their employers or their bosses were treating them. And that was a lot. That was a big percentage, but that was very early on. And then further down, I think it's reversed now. There's only a quarter of the people that are looking for a career change. So over the 8-9 weeks, I think some of the flexibility and how people have been treated have changed slightly. So it'd be interesting to do another survey in a few months' time.
So somebody has written in that their accounts payable team feels that they're working longer hours rather than the hours that they worked when they were in the office. And my response to that is I've heard that from some people. Sometimes that's a result of the technology at home isn't as good. I've heard from some accounts payable processes that they only have one screen instead of two screens, so it slows down entering invoice data, etc. Do you hear complaints about that, Jamie?
Yeah, I do, and I think I think it's not just accounts payable. I think everybody feels they're doing probably more because the hours probably are different as well. So that that effectively, definitely managers, AP managers have their laptops open for longer, probably even weekends. They're catching up with work, so they're probably being more productive but working longer hours. But
Yeah.
again, when we've gone through these sessions, Mary, I think you've got to try and get some form of work-life balance as well.
Yes.
So at points, turn the laptop off. Get the job done absolutely, but know there's a work-life balance between the two.
Right, right. And yeah, it's not that easy. Okay, so flexibility. Now I want to talk a little bit about technology. And sometimes when I talk about technology, or oftentimes, I'm talking about learning more about blockchain and Bitcoin, stuff like that. But in this time, in this particular period, I think that what we discovered is, at least some of you, is the technology that you have at home isn't as good as the technology in the office. And you're probably going, "Duh, no big surprise there." And we have to, I think, as we start taking our staffs working remotely, we have to start thinking about perhaps investing in some of the technology and some security. And the technology, I think, Jamie, has gotten really cheap. And so maybe this is an issue that you want to raise when you go back. Do you see the same thing, Jamie?
Yeah, yes. I mean, technology, it starts with, even how the internet works at home.
Yes.
So clearly, I don't know if it was the same in the States, Mary, but everybody started working from home, and things like broadband was just, at its limit. So even if you had the fastest broadband and you're paying over the odds to your broadband, people were all working from home, so it was stretched to the limit. So
Yeah.
people's broadbands were going slower. And then I think you and I have spoken many a time about people bringing laptops home and having new laptops and new PCs or old PCs that then didn't have Wi-Fi connection. So
Yeah.
I think that there's going to be a big review on the technologies that people need, especially in accounts payable, because
Right.
it's a very process-orientated function. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. Yep. So I'm going to have to admit I don't know what this means. So I'm hoping you do, Jamie, or somebody can explain it to me, because what I don't know is amazing. We can use dongles for better net connectivity. Dongles.
You see it. A dongle, yes, that's an internet connection. So it's effectively it's a Wi-Fi connection. So it has a mobile phone chip inside it. It plugs in like a USB port into your
Oh, okay.
and it effectively creates a Wi-Fi connection into your PC or your laptop. So a dongle is something that's been around for a little while, but yeah, what it does is hopefully boost your internet connection. We use them in the UK, especially when you haven't got a Wi-Fi connection on your PC or your laptop.
Okay, so I know a few people in the U.S. had concerns because a few of their staff maybe didn't have an internet connection at home, so this would be a solution. And it's just amazing, all the technology that's out there. Okay, So let's talk about paper, okay? So we have our own special challenges over here, Jamie, with paper checks. But paper checks weren't the only issue. We also found that paper invoices were sometimes problematic. Is simply that getting them through the post. Everybody was working at home. How are we going to get them? You run into the same thing?
Yes, so what was surprising was I think because of the whole COVID, this has just brought out the issue a little bit. So clearly in the US, obviously you have issues with checks, it's
Mm-hmm.
still very manual, you've got a lot of paper, but actually what's highlighted is that we have similar issues in the UK. Not as many checks because most of ours are electronic payments, but we've heard stories of poor people having to go into the office to go and collect manual invoices and not manual pieces of paper. And it was on a selection basis. So yeah, so we've still got the same issues in the UK. So although we profess to be experts in electronic payments and electronic invoicing, we're not quite there yet. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So I think like one of the recommendations, and I have this in my book, is that everybody should get to 100% electronic delivery of invoices. I'm not saying you have to go to invoice automation. I'm not saying that, although there are a lot of benefits associated with that, certainly, but at least have your invoices emailed to you instead of coming through the post. So I think that's a lesson learned. Okay. So, best practice, at least according to Mary Schaeffer, arrange for complete electronic invoice delivery, whether it be, invoice portal, invoice automation, EDI, or simple email. So, do you think your group can get to 95% electronic receipt of invoices in a short period of time? And I'm really honestly interested to see what everybody says here. And I'm pleased with the answers. Not that that really matters because it is what it is. So Jamie, we are seeing a lot of A's and B's. What do you
Good
think?
news.
Yeah, that is good news.
Yeah, no, hopefully A's would be definitely, but obviously the issue you've got is there's a lot of factors in going to a fully electronic receipt of invoices, but at least people are trying to move towards A's and B's, which is brilliant, excellent.
Yeah. And by the way, somebody wrote that they are already over 95%, so congratulations. My hat's off to you. Okay. And we only saw a few E's. Okay. And unfortunately some D's. No, we won't try. But A and B's were predominantly the responses that we're receiving. So I think that's a step in the right direction, because my fear is that this will happen again. I don't know if it's going to be COVID or it's something else. And I think the next time I hope we'll be ready, a little better prepared. Okay. So Jamie, what do you think about expecting the unexpected?
Well, look, I mean, I think, if anything, this COVID scenario has taught us is that you've got to always be prepared for the unexpected. And again, I go back to my earlier point that, what an amazing achievement for all organizations to fully get, operations working from home and different environments. But you do absolutely now have to be prepared for the unexpected at all times. That's my opinion.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, I wish I could tell you what that unexpected is. Of course, then it wouldn't be the unexpected. But I can tell you this. Up until probably sometime in early March, if you told me that most organizations or many organizations would be working mostly from home, not only in accounts payable, but many other office functions, I probably would have looked at you like you had three heads. So you're not disagreeing.
And no, it's funny though, Mary, because I spoke to somebody, I think it was end of December, early January,
Yeah.
and they were trialing working from home for a few of their teams. So they had like 20 AP staff, and they were trying to get 2 or 3 to work from home.
Yeah.
And I was amazed. I was saying, look, how are you going to do this? Is the security? And they said, yeah, look, it's working okay, but we've got a few issues. And within a matter of a couple of months, everybody was working from home. So
Right.
absolutely amazing.
Right. Right. You know what that also made me think about, Jamie? The fact that, basically in 48 hours or something like that, many people were able to take their whole accounts payable function remote. It made me wonder about all the time we spend on some of these corporate projects, and if maybe we're making a mountain out of a molehill sometimes.
Well, you and I have spoken about this a lot of times, Mary. So as AP managers and leaders, we all agree that 80% of our time is sort of managing people, and you get roughly 20% of your day job to do
Right.
all the other stuff, process improvements, all that
Right.
stuff. So yeah, so take out the meetings where, I don't know about yourself in the US, but I used to go to meetings to have a meeting. That's what it felt like. So, I'd have a meeting about a meeting to create a meeting. So when you're working from home, you don't have any of those. You have a few Zoom
Right.
calls, but that's where I think the productivity increases.
Yep. So somebody has commented here, though it is extremely more difficult going digital. I use Adobe to modify payment packets, but find it cumbersome and difficult to organize. I would love some tips. Hang on. I would love some tips on doing this. If anyone has suggestions on Adobe, but Maureen will have a lot more information for you on this particular issue moving forward. Okay, and I didn't mean to say your name. I'm trying to keep this all anonymous. Sorry about that. Okay, let's now talk about workspace changes. Okay, I'm talking about your physical workspace and a little bit about our workflow, but we won't all be sitting out, with the beach in the background, I don't think, like this lucky lady. But I think that we're going to have some big changes. And I've been reading a lot about it, and I actually talked to one company that's going back to work. I had the kind of the inside scoop because it's my son, okay? Because I thought, as I was writing some of this stuff, a lot of it was crazy, and it really was. And, Jamie, the first thing, and we were talking about this before, I saw that one of the guidelines was only one person in an elevator at a time. I'm like, oh my God, how is that ever going to work? And is that realistic? And our company's going to do that. So as I mentioned, my son is going back to work June 15th, and I asked him about the guidelines that his company had given, and he said 2 people per elevator. So
I think that's going to be a challenge, isn't it, Mary? Where you've got,
yes.
organizations, buildings with 10, 20-story buildings,
Yep.
and only 1 or 2 people in an elevator at a time. It means
Right.
that people are probably going to have to turn to work an hour or 2 early
Right.
just to get to the desks before the day, and then leave an hour or 2 later. So it's going to cause issues, but this is the reality. We can't get away from it. This is going to be the reality.
Right. Right. And his building is, I think, a 5 or 6 story. I was there and I just, I didn't focus on the size of the elevator or how many stories it was. But they also have, because people will walk up and down the stairs. So I asked, do they have one-way staircases? And he said no. They thought that was going to come, but no, that was not part of the rules. But again, it may have been because of the configuration of that particular building. So I think we're also going to see a mix of working from home and working remotely. Um, uh, uh, and then we're going to see also the other thing we're hearing about is one-way corridors. Are you hearing about that, Jamie?
Yeah, a lot of the time. So in the UK, we've had a lot of different guidelines set out by the UK government. So lots of stickers, lots of yellow tape, one-way corridors.
Yes.
So, but again, there are organisations that are going to struggle with this because of the size and the nature of their buildings.
Yes.
So everybody's going to try, but it's going to be more difficult for others. I think that's the only thing I would say.
Right. So somebody's written in here that if it's only 5 stories, they can go up and down the stairs and it'll help them stay healthy. And I'm kind of chuckling and agreeing. And I'm wondering if the next thing that we're going to see, and God help us if this happens, is if, okay, you're on the 1st or 2nd floor, don't use the elevator. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. So clearly there'll be more online meetings. And we're going to have more Zoom meetings, not covered like this, but where, we'll actually, you see the person and see their surroundings. I think I've been on more Zoom meetings in the last 10 weeks than I was in the complete time beforehand. Are you doing more meetings online, Jamie?
Oh, absolutely. I spend most of my life on Zoom meetings now, so it's I seem to, and again, so it's one of the things that I really, at the start it was difficult because it was a new environment, but now it's just a natural new thing. You know, I'm like yourself, Mary. I'm a people person. I like to meet people face
Right.
to face and have those relationships. But Zoom has become that sort of second replacement. I don't think you'll ever get away from having that interactions face to face. But I do admit that if we'd have had this COVID 10 years ago, when we didn't have things like
Right.
technology like Zoom, I think it'd have been a lot more difficult for people as well.
Right. Right. And I will tell you with these online meetings, more personally than professionally, I've got to see things that I normally wouldn't get to see. One of my plant friends who's in California, I'm on the East Coast. He ran a Zoom meeting where he took us around and he showed us all his greenhouses. And at the end of the meeting, somebody asked him, what technology he was using, and he was running that meeting from his phone. So lots of interesting things. Okay, there's going to be some wearing of masks in the office. There is no debate on this about whether you agree or whether you don't agree. These rules are coming down, at least in the US, from like the Center of Disease Control, from WHO, from OSHA, and from your state agencies. So whatever your company's rules are, we're going to have to do it. Again, I asked my son, and he said, yeah, that we're going to have to wear masks in the office at least part of the time. What do you see about this, Jamie?
Yeah, so it's similar in the UK, Mary. It's sort of it's at the moment they've made it best practice. So they've said, look, wearing masks and taking precautions and washing your hands for 20 seconds and 2 meter rules. All these are precautionary things. Now, employers have the choice of what they're doing. So they're obviously giving lots of guidance on what they're supposed to do. But again, I agree with you. I think it's going to be governmental or departmental issues. And then the company themselves are going to have to abide by the law. Now, in the UK as well, depending on what industry you're in, if it's health and safety risk or public risk, you will then get inspected as
Yeah,
well. So it's not only just, you've got to abide, from a company standpoint, but you'll get some form of legislation that means you'll be checked, drop in,
right.
checked on type thing. So it's coming down the road, wearing masks, whether we like it or not, unfortunately, is something that's going to become part of our, our working environment for a good period of time, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and I can tell you personally speaking, I wear the masks, and every time I put it on, I'm like, oh, this is awful. We don't go out much, but I was involved yesterday for an hour and a half in a situation where I had to wear the mask the whole time, and so I put it on, and I was like, oh, how am I ever going to get used to this? And you know what, Jamie? After 10 or 15 minutes, I forgot I had it on. So. Uh, it is. Expect more fraud. The initial statistics that I've seen have shown that phishing attempts are way up. I see a lot of email providers are getting tighter, and even here we've had some emails come back, and we have to contact people through another means. Same thing over there, JB?
Yeah, it is absolutely, and I've obviously been involved in a lot of accounts payable groups, and you and I have been on lots of
Hmm.
sessions over the last 8 9 weeks, Mary. But again, all functions, receivables, payroll, HR, everybody's sort of having fraud come to them at the moment, and it is these horrible scammers that have seen this as a pure opportunity. So we've just got to be on heightened risk alert, and I think you've mentioned this many a time, Mary, is that unfortunately, we're in that position now where you've just got to challenge absolutely everything. If you
Right.
think it's a risk or a fraud, challenge it straight away.
Right, right. And at this point, because I'm so paranoid about all this stuff, I would say that if you have any question about, for example, change of bank account details, a wire request, any stuff that you can't verify, just don't do it. I'd rather apologize for not doing the wire than try and explain to my boss why $2 million or £2 million went out the door and we're not getting it back. Okay, so some comments before we go on. Hang on, let me move up a little bit. I can't, this box is not that big. Okay, ongoing paperless. Other departments are pushing AP to accept a soft copy instead of a hard copy. However, compliance is challenging. auditors will always ask how to prevent fraud, duplicate payments, etc. And I think that this is an issue that we're going to have to see and will be adjusted. I know you've got the issue, Jamie, where sometimes for regulatory issues, you need to have a paper copy.
Yeah, and again, again, I think it was a previous one of these sessions we did, Mary, where there are European states, for instance, Italy, that absolutely, prior to COVID, had a real strict rule that, they had to have, for tax purposes, a physical
Hmm.
copy of the invoice.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing across Europe is a lot of relaxation of some of these rules. Now, what I was looking to do actually over the next month or two is really do some sort of survey and see what that looked like in Europe,
Hmm.
because we're hearing lots of stories of people get saying, no, it's not the same now in Europe and in the UK. So we're going to try and get that data together, but I think this COVID has driven some relaxation of those rules. So we can drive more electronic and automation and sort of a more online type invoices than having physical copies all the time.
Okay, good. And one last comment about this, and I've heard this from companies before, and so I'm going to share it with you. So hopefully that if your company does this, you'll be ready. And this person has written in, our cybersecurity group is sending phishing emails out on purpose to get us to hit the fish button and pay more attention. So your IT folks are trying to trick you. I know one company says that told me this story. The manager was telling me, and she said, "Oh, thank God we all passed. We recognized the phishing emails." And this person says, "If you miss 3 times, I love this. You have to go to remediation school."
But you know what? I think it's a good idea that to keep people alert, but you do unfortunately run the risk that it's like the story of the boy that cried wolf.
Yeah.
Ultimately you should be at heightened risk all the time. So I do agree that you should test the processes and make sure people are heightened to it. But
Yes.
obviously at the same time, the last thing you want to do is think, I won't tweak it on this one because it's probably just the IT guys. So at
Right.
all times, if you get anything, any scenario where you feel that you're at risk at all, like you said, Mary, challenge it. Click that button if it's phishing. If you think it's phishing, beg for forgiveness rather than get yourself into trouble.
Yeah. And somebody else, by the way, has written in us too. And if you miss 3 times, you have to go for extra training. And a third person has said, we have a company that sends phishing emails about twice a month. And if we click on it even once, we have to do extra training. And, we're laughing here, but, you click on it once and it can be $1 million or £1 million, or, a lot of money. So we're laughing, but we've got to be more alert. Okay. We talked about going paperless. I think there's going to be a greater push for that. Some new issues that you're all going to have to deal with if you are handling expense reporting, reimbursements, P cards, and this is refunds for canceled events. And reimbursements, sometimes questionable at about work for home expenses. Hopefully your organization is going to come up with some policies around that. But I haven't seen a whole lot. I have seen some companies. We just saw, I think it was Google, come out and give $1,000 to each employee to set up their work from home office. And then I guess they don't want to see any other expenses. Are you seeing much about this, Jamie?
Yeah, I think so. I think I think we mentioned this a few weeks ago, Mary. I think it's a changing landscape every day, every week. Things are changing,
Mm-hmm.
and like best practice on any policy is have it as a working document. So it'd be interesting to hear that our people on this call and people on previous calls have said that their policies are changing and they're updating them. So it's absolutely important that you go back and review the travel and entertainment policy, the accounts payable policy and procedures. Make sure they're adapting to the new world, so that when you are now looking at refunds in detail, you are looking at
Right.
working from home, expenses. Are the policies then reflecting the new world type thing? So have it as a working document. But we've heard that on several of these calls, so it's encouraging that people are doing that. But make sure you've got at least a policy as a reflection guide as well.
Right. And I talked to 2 people that I know personally, and one of them said, My company has restricted all travel, no travel through the end of the year. And they told me off the record they think that part of that is has to do with cost control, but they're saying it's COVID. And the other one said no, they want us back on the road as soon as possible because they want us to be as productive as possible. So you can see there's again no one size fits all approach. And the last one, Jamie, I find really sad, but at least initially we're not going to be sharing food. We can't bring plates of cookies back to the office or other goodies that you may have made at home.
Yeah, I'm a big sharer of not only food but share of hugs.
Oh
So I'll
yeah,
miss both.
yes.
I'll miss the cookies and the hugs.
With the with the food, if it's not there, you don't share it. But I instinctively go to hug people, so I don't know what I'm gonna have to learn some new behaviors, I guess. And we all will be. And again, I mean, one of the things that, at least in workplaces I've been in, a lot of times, like a small group would get together and we'd order Chinese food. We'd order, I don't know, if there were 6 of us, we'd order 6 different things, and then we'd all take a little bit from each box. I don't know if we're ever going back to that. Okay, so for you, which of these will be the hardest to adjust to? And there's no right or wrong answer, by the way. 3A, wearing a mask. 3B, just going back to the office. 3C, no hugging or handshakes. 3D, online meetings, since we don't have so we don't have headsets, or all of the above. Okay, Jamie, you and I have a lot of company on that hugging.
You're right. And you know what? Whilst everybody's putting their response in, my wife shared with me a picture yesterday about Zoom meetings. So I don't know if everybody on the call has the same, where at the end of a Zoom meeting, when you've got a bunch of people, you can see their faces on the Zoom call or a team call, or whatever it would be, you feel compelled at the very end of the meeting to wave to each
I,
other,
I
which
do
is
that.
very strange. In real life, you don't wave to them. I think that's a natural replacing for the hugging and the handshaking. You feel compelled to wave to each other. So
Yes.
it's an interesting one, but yeah, it's very big things at the moment.
What was everybody in those pictures waving?
Absolutely.
Sometimes I'm the only one waving, so I guess I have to find out who your wife works with because I think I'd fit in better there. But I do wave, yeah. So the answers are all over the place. Um, we're seeing D was not popular, by the way, but other than that, all over the place, and not that many A's. Okay, most common B's and C's, and quite a few E's. So we're gonna have to adjust. So okay. All right. So don't forget. Okay, now I told you not to share food, and here I have a picture of a cake for you all to share. Okay, so already, I flunked the test. I guess I need remediation training. But we want to think about, how we can show our appreciation for our staff. I guess individual chocolate bars might be better than that beautiful cake. What do you think, Jamie?
Yeah, look, obviously a couple of weeks ago, Mary, you and I co-hosted an appreciation week,
Yes.
and it was lovely to see lots of people sharing different ways, whether that's sharing a few comments on social media, sharing some videos, some photos, jumping on Zoom calls and
Hmm.
showing appreciation. But I think the whole concept, whether it's a cake, a chocolate bar, some flowers, I think, now more than ever, we do need to share with one another.
Right.
Even the smallest bits of appreciation, it's a really important factor of what we're going through at the moment.
Yeah. And I think it's just to say, even if you just say thank you, or you send an individual note, a little individual email that can mean a lot to the people who get it. I know Jamie and I have gotten quite a few of these, and I have posted it on what I call Mary and Jamie's Wall of Appreciation. I hope you've looked at it, Jamie.
I have, Mary, and again, so we did something similar, as you know. It was nothing to do with me; it was all technology focused. But again, so the walls of appreciation, yours and the AP associations, I think they've just been amazing. Just so lovely to see all the comments, people sharing the appreciation. And you're right, the biggest appreciation was just people saying thank you to one another, which
Right.
is, and I'm hoping when we go back to offices that we realise that actually that whole appreciation and the thanks is a very important factor. Let's not lose that. So when we go back, let's keep those little elements going as we go back.
Right, right. So I like to have fun, and occasionally I'll look at the AP-association.com's website, and if you look at Appreciation Week and scroll down, and then they have Wall of Appreciation, it was just nice to see, different people saying they appreciated what the association had done and what their teams had done. Okay, first of all, I have to tell you, I would never in a million years do this. But or walk across a tight wire. Would you, Jamie?
Actually, I think that is a picture of me doing that, actually,
Oh,
Mary. I
yes,
think,
yes. With the wig you put on at the end of our last call.
yeah, I've lost a few pounds then. So I'm with
You
you, Mary.
have.
I'm hoping that's a Photoshop.
Yeah.
But I think I think the point is obviously you can do it is, let's be honest. You said this very early on in the call, Mary, that 3 months ago somebody told you that the entire population would be working from home, and more specifically, a back office function like accounts payable would be, within a few days, continually, working from home, operating, doing month ends, year ends, managing teams. I would have said you were crazy. But clearly, that lesson there is you can do it. Absolutely applies to what these guys have been going through for the last 2 or 3 months.
Yes. Yeah. And so anytime, keep this in mind, 2 years from now, when you have an opportunity to take a new job or to take on a new task or to, lead a team or whatever, don't be thinking, oh, I can't do it. You can do it, and you showed that you can do it through these last few months. So, and make sure your team members know that you can do it. So, moving forward, I love this quote from Winston Churchill. He said, "Never let a good crisis go to waste." And so, while we talked about lessons learned here, I hope that they stay with us going forward. You have proved that you can do this. You've probably done a lot more than you would have thought possible, especially on such short notice. And just keep this in mind. And let's take advantage of it. So let's take advantage of what we learned and make sure when you go back. I know people. I hate to do this, but you hate to be bragging about yourself, but brag about your team, about what they did, and make sure management appreciates it. You agree?
Absolutely, and it's a great quote by Winston Churchill. And I think the fundamentals in where we're going through at the moment as a crisis is that you'll never probably get an opportunity like you have at the moment. I think for the first time ever, organisations really do understand the pain points that AP go through, and they
Yes.
can really appreciate what you've been doing. To use that opportunity, really shout from the highest points about either yourself and what your team have been going through, and make sure you keep shouting about it as well. We as an association, I know you do the same there, we're all about, promoting and getting the voice of accounts
Hmm.
payable out there. This is the best opportunity you'll ever get. Get your voice
Right.
out there. People understand the point now. So make sure you keep telling everybody about it, because people will remember these days.
Yes. Yes. And again, think back to January. If anybody had told you were going to do this, would you have been able to? And by the way, for those of you who are in the office, you had challenges also. So we recognize them. I know we keep talking about work from home, but those of you who were in the office also, you had your unique challenges, and yet you kept it together, so to speak. And I think the fact that companies designated you as essential employees is beginning to say how your company should think about you going forward. You are so essential to the running of the organization. Okay, so our last question. I hope somebody is going to write in none of these, but which do you expect to be the biggest challenge? Getting refunds from travelers who put them on personal cards for A, for B, dubious work from home expenses. To C, finding a fraud that went undetected. For D, dealing with managers who refuse to comply with the social distancing mask rules. I want to say I hope I don't see that, but we do. And D, not sure. Okay. And the answers are, unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of D's, which kind of upsets me because it doesn't, I like to tell people it doesn't matter whether you agree with them or you don't. It's like saying, you follow the company rules, okay? So basically, Jamie, all of the aboves. I want to say a lot of D's. Oh, geez, a lot of D's, some B's and C's, and some A's, and some A's, and then somebody wrote 4A, 4B, 4C. So what would you have guessed?
Again, I think it would have been a mix across across all of them, to be honest with you. But I think what will happen, if I'm really honest, is C will become more prevalent. Because I think, as time goes on, I think the frauds will start to come out. Because as great as everybody's done and the jobs everybody's been doing, there obviously has been those pressure points when people have been forced to do things in a quick fashion.
Right.
So I think that, one of the things I would definitely recommend is when you get back to the office or you get back to, you can put some controls in place, take a look at, the duplicates, the fraud, anything you might think of risk of fraud, take that time to go and review those processes and policies, because things may have crept in there, and this is probably a good time to start looking at some of those processes and policies.
Right. Yep. Okay, so somebody did write in none of these. I envy you. And somebody wrote in that people should stay at home, but they're not going to always have that option, unfortunately. And at the end of the day, these are whatever the rules end up being in your organization. They're the rules that you're going to have to comply with, and you just have to take it from there, if you will. So today's harsh reality, what we've seen is crooks don't take vacation. They have no respect for uncertainty and troubled times. And they thrive on it, actually, and they look to exploit it. And I'm guessing you agree with me, Jamie?
Yeah, absolutely, Mary, definitely.
Okay. So I caution you to be alert. Make sure you educate your staff on new frauds. I'm probably hyper sensitive to this, but be suspicious. And when in doubt, don't forget to ask and verify. Do you want to add anything? We have one more question.
No, I just think. I think, to be honest with you, Mary, if I was the audience, I would take this slide and I'd print it off on my desk, and I'd have that there embedded, ready to use this as my crib sheet, because this is something that I think everybody should have. Add as you wish. Have this for at least the next 6 to 12 months, purely on the basis this is best practice, in my opinion. So print this sheet off, print this particular slide off, pop it in your desk, and look at that every day to make sure that you're doing these 4 points.
Yeah, yeah. It's sad, but this is the world we live in. Okay, so if you're at home, which do you look forward to when you return to the office? And if you're in the office, you can answer this as well. Which do you appreciate the most? I'm curious about this. Okay. So which do you, what do you think is coming up as the primary answers?
I think that A and D, I'd imagine. A, B, and D.
So A is not coming up, although I just saw 1 or 2. D and F. My colleagues, yeah, and some C's, my boss. Okay, now there's a lot of comments here, so I'm going to just read them out, Jamie. Okay, here we go. Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay, D and F by far the largest, a few A's. let me just see. I think everybody answered this one. Okay, and we got a lot of people on. Okay, so here goes some comments. F, the routine, and A, only I would rather work from home, but was told it's not an option. Okay, that's unfortunate. But if it's not, it's not. Okay, co-workers and friends that I socialize with, especially during lunchtime. Yep. Not F, only A, 2 screens. I would much rather work from home, but was told it's not an option. Somehow I read that. Somebody else wrote they have 2 screens, and they were working from home. So there were some people who were able to bring it all above. And somebody said you need none of the above, and yeah, I guess that is a point. So that's where we stand. So a whole bunch of things, but I think what's coming across is people miss their colleagues and their friends, and also a certain routine. And by going into the office at a certain time and coming home, that kind of gives you a certain work-life balance. Now, what did you miss most, Jamie?
Yeah, I just love the people interaction part. I agree with you there. I think the routine's a really important factor, and when we did something similar in the UK and we surveyed, we were surprised that it was even the interaction, the noise of the interaction as well. I think we did one previously,
Yep.
Mary, where somebody commented that they just liked the hustle and bustle.
Yep.
Accounts payable is a very hustle and bustle environment. So when you're working on your own at home, yes, you might have the children running around, the dog jumping on you, and the postman knocks on the door, but you don't have the noise, you don't have the constant attention that's needed. So I think people are missing that part as well.
Yep.
But it's interesting, as I say, I think there's a mix of all of those.
Yep.
But again, I think what will happen is there's a saying in the UK: the grass isn't always greener on the other
Yep.
side.
We have that one too.
I think people will get back to work and then realise they probably want to work from home. So there'll be a mix, I'd imagine.
Okay, so I want to tell you next week is our last one of these events, but Jamie and I are talking about a way that we will have something like this going forward. Just, watch your email for the detail. But I want to encourage everyone to sign up for the next week. I've got the link there. And we're going to have 4 or 5 AP managers from around the world talking about their accounts payable function during COVID and coming out of it. And I think it's going to be probably the most interesting one of these sessions that we've had for the entire period. And I am really looking forward to it. So I hope that you'll join us. I'm Mary Schaeffer from AP Now. Jamie Radford is my co-host on these, is from the AP Association in the UK. Okay, a global organization. I have some words of a link about my book. Jamie, can people still sign up for the AP Appreciation Week sessions even though they're past?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we did, Mary, because we recorded all the sessions, so you and I were on every day. You
Yep.
get up at ridiculous hours in the morning. So they're all recorded. All they've got to do is go along to ap-association.com, choose the page for AP Appreciation Week, put your details in. It's all free, and go and listen to all of these sessions that we recorded. There's something like 50 sessions, lots of opportunity to interact, listen and learn from some of the experts, including one of the best world-renowned experts, such as yourself, Mary.
Oh, that's very nice of you to say. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for attending. We really do hope to see you next week at this very, very special session where we'll have accounts payable managers from around the world. One of them is even getting up at 1 o'clock in the morning. This session is now concluded. Be safe, everyone. Be safe, Jamie. Thanks.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks, everyone.